Bam! MC is in the house. What is going on, folks? My name is Justin Garcia, and that is my damn annoying clock, which I said last week that I was going to wait till it went off, but I forgot, as is the case. But as that goes off, I'm still going to explain what's going on. My name is Justin Garcia, also known as Master Chim, and welcome to the Warrior Stream. Of course, it's 12 o'clock, so I get 12 of those. Reminder to self, turn off the clock before you start the live stream. Let's start off with this. What's going on, Johnny? I see you there. What's up, Jesse? Good to see you. Jamie, my man up in Canada. Good to see you, my friend. So, got some stuff I wanted to talk about today. Before I get into that, let's get into a couple of updates on things that are going on in the world of me, the world of MC. We have launched a redone, upgraded, updated version of the site. So if you go to masterchim.com, you will find a different experience. Along with that, I'm very happy to offer and announce to you guys that haven't heard yet, anybody that signs up to my email list is going to get the program Master the 24-Hour Cycle for free. Now, this program is my balance management program, which is basically time management, growth, sort of packaged and framed in a way that you're not going to lose touch with all the things that actually matter. And there's a lot of time management programs out there and time management systems out there, but balance management is a little bit more of a inline version of philosophy philosophy, joined with productivity. So all that being said, you can go to masterchim.com, put your email in the list or in the form. You will get sent an email. In that email will be a coupon code. You will be able to access the program for free with that coupon code. As being part of the form, getting this process done, you're going to be on the email list for my daily free email newsletter. It's got to be a better way to say all of that, but I think I got it all out there so you guys understand what's going on. Jan Saxa, good to see you. Corey, my man, 50th episode. That's right. Today is episode 50. Corey, thank you for reminding me. And I think I have a pretty good framework for today's talk prepared. I sent out an email this morning. Little side note, I am still enjoying doing those thumbnails. It's funny. Before I started using the AI-generated thumbnails, it took me maybe 10, 15 minutes to design the thumbnail and then send out the email, announcing, the live show of the day. Now it's taken me close to an hour, but I think it's a good thing because I use Midjourney to create those thumbnails, and it really, allows me to not only get better at using the AI, with prompts and edits and things like that, modifiers, but it also is a lot of fun. It's a lot of fun creating these images seemingly out of nothing. So today is episode 50, and Safe is for Suckers is the title. And on the thumbnail for today, I put at least part of the quote. I think it's a quote from John Shedd, I think the guy's name is. And it is, boats are safest in the harbors, but that's not what boats are built for. So what's up, Derek? Good to see you. So in that vein, today we're going to be talking about, I think, a general position that a lot of people have today that they sort of validate a lot of their inaction. They validate a lot of the compliance, to what it is that they do by citing safety. I have to be responsible. I have to play it safe to a certain extent because, I don't disagree with that, in concept, the spirit of the sentiment, I don't disagree with. It's like, yeah, we all need to be safe to a certain extent, but it's where is this, this arbitrary line of when we go from being safe to being reckless. And I think there is a formulaic way of looking at that. And it's kind of what I wanted to talk about today. I think starting off, with a sort of premise and building from there is how I wanted to go about it. And what I chose was the first point that I put in the email, which is gratitude for the struggle. I've said it before. I've said it in different ways. I've gotten, I would say more articulate in expressing this idea. But this notion, this concept of having gratitude for the struggle, what is it based on? Well, the idea of it is that if we look at any of the attributes that we possess as men and women, the things that we're proud of, the things that other people give us favorable, productive, positive feedback for having or displaying, those good points of who we are. If we sort of described us in a series of bullet points, of good features, right, or characteristics, what that list would be, I'd say everything that's on that list, anything that meets that criteria, when we installed it, it came by way of a process that was filled with pressure. The things that we are good at because at one point we were tested and found to not to be good at those things. And we, either voluntarily or otherwise, were exposed to a process that at the tail end of, we got a little bit better. We got a little bit stronger. We've accumulated, skills and capabilities in certain areas over our lives, over the years of our lives, because of all of the trials and tribulations, all the struggles and sort of pressure-filled experiences that we've had along the way. So we could say that, therefore, we should, when it comes to a struggle, we should look at that struggle as the sort of appearance of an opportunity, the opportunity to become more, the opportunity to become all of the things that I just described, more productive, more effective, more valuable to ourselves and those around us, therefore all the alliances that we make. When struggle shows up, we're about to become better people. If anything else showed up in that type of way, like a guy shows up and he's here to help you paint your house. Guy shows up and he's here to help you fix your car. A lady shows up, she's here to help you, I don't know, whatever ladies help you with. In each of those instances, you'd have this gratitude and you'd express this gratitude to them. Thank you for helping me. Thank you for leaving me better off than when you found me, and whatever example, the visit represented. Yet, when struggle shows up, the first thing we do is start the story of woe. Woe is me. Woe is my life. Woe is my struggle. How could this happen to me? I hate when this happens. And it's not only unproductive, but I would say more significant to the context of the talk, it is more of a sort of psychological incentivization to not encounter those situations. If we're somebody who appreciates the struggle, right? I'll use an analogy, something that I can compare. Use the example of adrenaline junkies, right? So if somebody's called an adrenaline junkie, we sort of know what that means, right? It's not a literal addiction to adrenaline, but we understand what we're describing. This guy, he if his heart rate's under 180, he's not happy. Like this guy's jumping off buildings. He's doing just silly shit by normal standards, but it's what he likes doing. Well, why is it that we get in our way? What is the cost, the opportunity cost of not becoming addicted to the struggle when we've already deduced logically how the struggle is exactly what leads to everything we value? And I think there's a lot of programming, a lot of monkey brain programming, a lot of there's a lot of evolutionary utility when we're looking at hey, play it safe, don't take a chance, become risk averse. It makes sense, right? It makes sense staying away from big scary animals, big scary trees, venturing out at night and wandering into the cave. Like there's certain things that we can understand, being risk averse as a default setting in our psychology, why that makes sense. However, we've transcended that somewhat in our ability to say, okay, this is not, doing a backflip on the side of a, rooftop. This is not jumping from, one car to another car, like while it's doing 60 miles an hour. Like this is not those things. Therefore, all of the programming that I have to avoid or disincentivize me doing those things does not apply to this situation. How pressure shows up, it's really, it's as varied as the individual experiencing it, depending on who you are, what you're about, what's happening. I mean, it could be anything. The other day, I was just talking to my mastermind group this morning, telling them a story, Saturday night coming back from New York. I hit a hole in one of these just fabulous Pennsylvania roads, and that led to a whole, adventure regarding fixing my tire and getting it up and running. And I didn't plan on that happening, but when it happened, I had an approach. And of all the things that I invested energy in, the woe is me, I can't believe I have to deal with this, story that never entered the formula. It's not to say, if you guys have watched my second step strategy program, you understand what I'm going to describe now, but that's not to say that our first reaction isn't a subconsciously driven one where it's like, yeah, I hit that thing. And it's like the first thing that happens as soon as I hit that hole, because I hit that hole about as hard as a car tire could ever hit a hole in the road. As soon as I hit it, I went, fuck, because I was like, oh man, here we go. But then right after that initial reaction, it's like, well, what are you going to do? You're going to drive, see if this thing's still going, see if the rim's bent, is the tire flat. I have one of those sensors, so it's not going off. So it's all right. It seems to be going well. Keep driving. Sensor goes off. The thing's obviously leaking now. Wasn't too far from my house. Got home. Like it's just about, oh, what do I do? What do I do? What do I do? What do I do? The action. What am I doing? That is always the thing that follows. Maybe that, unproductive first reaction. The first step, that prompts the second step strategy, right? Obviously, that's the logic of the name of that title. So when we think about when these things present themselves, how do we benefit from it? Well, I learned a bunch. I learned a little bit more about how my car worked. I learned a little bit more about how those fix-a-flats do not fucking work as well as you would like them to. It wound up just being a rep of some stuff that I got better at. Did I want to get better at it? No, but I don't always get to choose that, just like you don't always get to choose the struggles that present themselves at your feet from time to time. If it's there, it's there, and if you're in it, you're in it. And talking about whether I should or shouldn't be in it doesn't make any sense, doesn't really hold any value when you are in it, right? So the first thing is that gratitude for the struggle. It's hard to tell ourselves, right? I've said before, we can command our conscious mind, but we can only program our subconscious mind. We can only program ourselves indirectly to better equip our subconscious with a better sort of context in its relationship with life, so that it's producing, thought patterns and drives in us that are a little bit more in line with our missions. It takes some time to get that done. Exposing ourselves consciously to things over and over again is what that process is about. So I don't really hold anybody responsible, for not being perfect in their first reaction to a stimulus. However, what their second step is and what the second step action is after that initial reaction, they've got to own that, because that's the process that's most accessible. Starting off with gratitude for struggle is a great beginning to that process. There's things, and I've shared this before, that one of the things that I tell myself when I enter into some sort of, struggle in my life, some emergency situation, or some just, I didn't know this was going to happen today, yet here it is. When I find that it's giving me that pit in my stomach and I'm getting that, that anxious, like, about to tell the story, write the story in my head of all the things that can go wrong. When I find myself right at the cusp of that, my internal dialogue is game on. It's like, okay, 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 universe, you want to test me? Here we go, game on. That's the mindset. A little corny, but I'm talking to myself, usually not sharing this out loud to other people. But it's a positioning strategy. It's already, telling myself, no, this isn't something that's happening to me. This is an opportunity that's put in front of me at my feet, and it's up to me to pick it up and run with it. You're there either way, right? You're there either way. So if we take that observation and we butt it up against the acknowledgement that everything that we have of value is connected to a process that starts with pressure, then this becomes the argument for gratitude whenever those emergencies wind up happening. It scales and the applications are varied. And, I remember like when a couple of years ago, my father passed, when he passed, I wasn't happy that he passed, obviously, but the gratitude immediately was driven toward, the fact that I, had him in my life, the fact that I've had those experiences with him, any positive context or a positive perspective that could be had concerning my father. Well, that was the stage that it was to be presented. So gratitude for the struggle, right? So hopefully I made a decent enough case for that. Let's get to the second point that I have. First, what's up, Danny? What's going on? Derek, Ant's got some power lift too. All right, right on. Corey says, I've had some pretty epic tire change moments. You and I both. And as much as I've used this last example in the story, like it was certainly not the most epic tire change experience I've had either. So, second point that I brought up in the email, why safety is an illusion. Safety is an illusion. The other day in an email, I wrote, every email I write one of the quotes of the day, right? I think of a quote, I sit there, I ponder a little bit about what's going on in my mind. Like, what do I want to, basically I ask my subconscious to give me something to think about and put in a succinct, quote. And I enjoy that process of the email every day, writing that quote of the day. And the quote of the day a few days ago was about luck. And the quote, paraphrasing my own quote, was pretty much when luck occurs, it reminds us that we're not the only ones in control, right? And the thought process of that is, good luck and bad luck. It's like whenever we think we're owed something, we're entitled something, or wherever we think something negative is inevitable, right? Maybe we think we're entitled to something negative in that case. But whenever we start talking about entitlement in our expectations of the future, we really start to go beyond our level of control over these variables. We start talking about things that we're not the only ones, at play here. And I think when we look at the idea of safety, similarly, we think that even in a situation where we control what's in our control, sometimes we conflate or confuse that with therefore us having complete control of all the variables at play here. I keep my hands at 10 and 2. I have my seatbelt on. I signal. I, stop, the stop signs, complete stop. I do all the things that the book says to do. Therefore, I'm not supposed to get into an accident. Well, it's a probability thing, right? We do these things because it increases our probability, but there's a sort of little bit of a logical jump that people can make if they ever tell themselves, well, now I'll never get into an accident because I'm doing these things. Because that observation is them saying, well, even though there's all these variables that are out of my control, if I control all of the variables that are in my control, somehow those other ones are going to get controlled too. And that's just never the case. So when it comes to safety, we think it's a matter of do it or don't do it, when it's only ever going to be a matter of a spectrum of how much of the total variables that are at play here, how many of them are we controlling? So safety is in and of itself an illusion. It's really just an influence over probability. There are a lot of people who, an accident happens and, they look at it as something other than an accident when the possibility of that accident occurring was always there. And there's no point leading up to that where they would not have conceded that the possibility was there. Yet when it shows up, they want to act like there must have been some intent. No. Somebody had to be in control in order for this to happen. Yeah, but you just conceded before that this was within the realm of possibility in terms of just being completely accidental. The definition of an accident being the occurrence that had some probability, but lacked intent. Like just putting a definition together. But the intent isn't there if we call it an accident, right? That's what makes it an accident. But when we look at people who are looking to become very, very safe, and they want to conflate that, as I just mentioned a few moments ago, controlling everything that's in their control somehow controls all the variables in their entirety, those same people, when faced with accidents, then wind up saying, well, we need to control this completely because it turns out we thought we controlled it completely, but this accident illustrated that we do not. I would counter in saying, well, no, you never controlled it completely, nor will you control it completely moving forward. In other words, the probability or possibility of accidents is something we need to make peace with. Well, somebody who is looking to be as safe as they can be does not functionally follow that criteria. Somebody who's being as safe as they can be, what winds up doing is they wind up compromising their ability to grow as a result of it. Derek says, it's interesting to see people who have experienced pressure and had challenging experiences more frequently than those who haven't. It's night and day. Absolutely. And I think Jamie's quote fits right in here. Calm seas make poor sailors. What winds up happening with, I was just, again, talking to my mastermind group a little while ago. I was talking about this video, and it was connected to a point we happened to be discussing. But for our purposes here is this video of this guy, YouTube channel, Outdoor Boys, right? Outdoor Boys. It's like a guy who lives in Alaska and his kids, his 3 sons, and camping and stuff. And this guy, I love watching these videos. I love watching these videos with my kids. This guy does shit that I would, be absolutely experiencing anxiety over. When it comes to his camping and the things that he does, bringing one of the videos, he brought his 3 or 4-year-old son to an overnight camping. And it was 50 degrees below zero. To me, I'm like, is this guy fucking crazy? Well, obviously the difference between him and me is he knows what the fuck he's doing out there. I don't. I'm a city kid, right? I am learning how to navigate the world of nature. This guy is, he's like a fish in water. And you see when he makes these decisions, and sometimes things happen that I would have completely overreacted to because of the lack of context I would have had if it did happen. He just shrugs it off, and he's in touch with the big picture. And he also understands what accidents could have happened. And when they do, he just rolls with it. Right. And obviously he mitigates a lot of these accidents from happening because of his experience and his skill set, but it's hey, how do you avoid your child freezing to death in 50 degrees below zero weather? You don't bring him camping during 50 degrees below zero weather. Like, so it's like if you don't want him to freeze to death, you just don't fucking bring him there, right? That's the certainty. If somebody needed the certainty, that's one way to be certain. You just don't do it. And that's the person overreacting and looking, well, they have to control everything. But what winds up happening as a result, and I'll use this as the continuing, example of this idea, is this guy doesn't get the experience and the power that comes from it of bringing his 4-year-old camping, in 50 degree below zero weather. They don't get to enjoy that experience. They don't get the understanding of that experience, which increases the person's capability. All of that is thrown out when we're looking to be completely safe. So the third point of the email that I put out, what safety does to growth. People that are extremely safe wind up not growing past a certain point. One of my phrases, you guys have heard it, one of my aphorisms, movement is mandatory. And the idea of movement is applicable to many different areas of our life. And in this instance, the movement is represented by an ability to take on risk at the expense of safety, or the illusion of perceived safety. The illusion of safety or the perception of safety. I don't know if there's an illusion of perceived safety. You guys know what I mean. So for me, it's like, all right, the things that I want to do, obviously I'll use business as an example, right? I have people who do individual coaching with me who have businesses. And one of the things that they are averse to is the type of risk that is required to get them to where they want to go. How is it that you think you're going to grow in business if you're not willing to take some risks? There's a guy, Peter Drucker, one of his quotes is, might be a literal quote, might be me paraphrasing as usual, but all profit derives from risk. It's like if you don't take risks, you don't make money. Yeah, but what if you have a job? Well, you might not feel it. You might not be aware of it. You might not ever see it. But when you work for 40 hours, there is a risk that the motherfucker ain't going to pay you at the end of the week. Right? So there's still risk in that. Obviously, it's just a different relationship with what that risk is. But those people that I work with, a lot of, entrepreneurs who are looking to, basically frame their life in a way, that growth is inevitable. One of the first things they really need to come to grips with is that there is an inherent risk, and I explained to them, I try to add a context to where the risk that they're going to be exposed to is one they're already familiar with. They're just not familiar with it in the way that it's going to be perceived once they begin looking to grow as a business owner. It's sort of like, and I've used this analogy before, if you're swimming in 8 feet of water, or you're swimming in 50 feet of water, if you know how to swim, you're going to swim. If you don't know how to swim, you don't need 50 feet of water to drown in. Oh, are there more concerns if we're talking about the ocean depth of water? Of course, but it starts with this basic premise. You're already swimming. So let's get better at swimming. Let's get better at navigating the differences, the types of threats that wind up presenting themselves when the depth of the water changes over time. But let's not conflate the fact that, like, listen, if we know how to swim, we know how to swim. It doesn't matter the depth of the water for a certain amount of time. But they automatically think something's different. There's an experiment, and the first time I heard this referred to, I give my boy Tuan Tom a shout out. It was, him talking about the mental difference between navigating a plank, right? Just like a, 2x4, let's say a 8-foot 2x4 plank, when it was laid on the ground, and how many people would fall off. Now take that same plank and put it, 100 feet in the air. No wind or anything like that, right? And just have them try to navigate. Basically the same physical feat, but now the context changing how much more of a story is weighing the person down to the point where they're more likely to fall at that higher level of height. Why? Because the perception of risk is different. And therefore they think the task is different as well. These are all factors and variables that we have to sort of make peace with. I'm somebody, Tuan Tommy, just so what's up? What's up, brother man? When I heard Tuan Tom first talk about that difference, it was in front of a team of Navy SEALs down in Virginia a couple of years back. And, it's when we talk about somebody who's building a relationship with what risk is, sometimes people just it's just easier for them to say, you know what, it's bad. Risk is bad. All risk is bad. You need safety. But, men don't often feel comfortable saying something like, well, you always have to be completely safe. You always we know that's not the thing too. We might not be able to articulate it. And, to offer a sort of paradigm to process this with, it's, every bit of risk that we take on, it is at the expense of safety. And the safety that we take on is to increase the level of certainty in our lives. And the people who want to be completely safe are the people who want to be completely certain, which we know that's not a possibility. So I would throw out that, complete safety is something we should aspire to begin with. It's going to change from individual. Some people, I'm a fucking cowboy, not literally, but I'm somebody who is all about risk. I'm somebody who gets very bored, and very claustrophobic in my life if I'm doing the same thing over and over again. But I also know that I'm not like everybody. I know there are a lot of people, I talk about the guy, the Outdoor Boys on YouTube, the guy that I was talking about that lives in Alaska, goes camping. I think he might be the most wholesome person on the internet. Like, I look at him, his wife, his sons, and it's like, man, these guys are as wholesome, I think, as the human race can get. I was raised in the South Bronx during the 80s. There is no, I was raised around predators. And growing up around predators, where the predators are people, it's like how to walk down the street. How to be aware in a busy setting. There are just some things that it's like you've already been exposed to. And I look at that guy and his family. It's like, man, I wonder what it's like to just be you in the wilderness. There are obviously threats in the wilderness, obviously predators in the wilderness, but they're worrying about moose, not crackheads, it's different type of predator, different type of approach, different type of protocol dealing with them. And I look at those people and there's a happiness to it and them managing the risk that's in their life in a way that allows them to continue to move. So it's like there's no judgment. Like, listen, I love that guy and his videos, and it's such a reprieve a lot of times from my day-to-day, interactions and environment. But I also know that even this guy, I guess the point of it is even that guy who is just, like he is like super normal, What's your superpower? Normal. And, I look at him and even that normal guy, that wholesome guy, he understands that there's risk. He goes and does something that even I grew up in the fucking Bronx, am like, this guy's fucking crazy. I can't believe he's doing that. And he's like, going to roast some marshmallows. It's like, oop, the marshmallow froze. Because it's minus 50 fucking degrees out. It's just, I think it's valuable to see that take the human predator element out of it. And here's a guy who still understands the value of dancing with the risk, right? Mad Guardian, still one of my favorite names there. Some men can easily become deluded in thinking they're always at their best because they did it once. Man, unlike a sword, dulls quickly in the scabbard. I like it. And I agree completely. Night of Devotion says, people who are too comfortable need to get out of the comfort zone. Otherwise, how are you going to grow as a person? Why be a loser when you can be cool? All right. Well, a little bit of a turn it took at the end, but I agree with the sentiment. I agree that, and I'll compare this to something I've commented on before, where in jiu-jitsu, martial arts in general, but in jiu-jitsu specifically, from personal experience, you see a lot of people as white belts. They join the school and they get their asses kicked. And because jiu-jitsu works, right? Grappling works. And if they don't know it, they're going to realize that. And some people never come back. Some people are like, you know what? I want to learn how to do that. And the first stages of their development is about them, just getting their asses kicked. They're learning moves and, they're looking to get progressively better. But when they interact with people, or engage with people, in grappling who are more experienced, they come out, on the losing end of it. But then they get to a point where they don't want to lose anymore. And the easy way, right, to sort of make it a switch where you'll never lose again is you just stop exposing yourself to any of the risk. They're not grappling with people, who could give them a run for their money or beat them, as if you could win in training. But I think you understand what I mean. They stop exposing themselves to that risk because they want to not lose anymore. And the one thing I can guarantee is that they've just capped off where their development is going to be. They'll still get a little, like, just fucking up newbies. Like, you will learn some shit, as much as I would love if that wasn't the case. If you're somebody who just beats the shit out of newbies every day, you will get better. But there is a ceiling, and the ceiling's low compared to the people who are still exposing themselves to that type of feedback. That's why in jiu-jitsu, you'll see a lot of times the smaller guys learn a lot more than the bigger guys, because the bigger guys, a lot of them are used to being big. They're not used to getting smashed and hammered. And, not that I'm a small guy, but I'm certainly a short guy. And, over the years, like, there have been big guys who, I hold them down and they can't move, and I'm controlling them and they're flipping the fuck out and they still can't do anything. They're not used to that. You take some of these smaller guys and, they've been being stuffed in fucking lockers and glove boxes their whole lives. Right. So it's not really a far cry from what's needed from them to become better at jiu-jitsu. So, a lot of these variables at play. The smaller guy, there's risk in everything he does because, he's so much smaller. So, yeah, I might get thrown. I might get squashed. I might get, held down, turned upside down, like just a part of what they do. Right. Two on Tom writes, one of the challenges in life is to figure out how to take risks so that we can achieve great things. But meanwhile, people are attached to us who do not want to take those risks with us. That's right. That's right. And they'll get off, when it's like being on a train and the conductor is walking down the train car and he's, tickets. It's like they'll stay on as long as they can. They'll keep moving to the back of the car until it's time to pay up. And then they'll go, oh, I didn't know I had to do all this. This isn't for me. And that's what winds up happening. I think anybody who's ever done anything in life knows these people. These people that we've mentored, these people that we've invested in, these people that, we've protected in certain cases. And then it comes time for them to step up and prove their worth. And they opt out instead. And I would say that it's always sooner rather than later that you want them to do it, which is why, and it's something that I think all us men get better at as time goes on. We wind up front loading a lot of that pressure. We wind up front loading. It's like, it's like I belong to a website. This is true. A website that was like a business website, and it's like a strategy content stuff. Like, it's just one of these sites that I belong to, and they had a unique to sites like them payment format. And the way that you paid was, it was like $1,000 the first year, and then like $200 every year after that, and it's like, yeah, they front load that shit because not everybody's going to be there forever, and I get it. And that's the thing. And if it's worth the $1,000, then yeah, you do it. And then it's like every other year you get it at a discount. Well, people, alliances, maybe not people, but alliances that those people find themselves in, the alliances themselves benefit from that type of structure too. Don't make it easy to get access to everything you have. It's not to say that you don't want to offer. I mean, here I am doing a free video on YouTube talking about some stuff that people pay me a lot of money to hear. And a lot of these things that I share are things that I share with them. Maybe a little bit more customized to their situations, because there's obviously a difference between talking about the general principles and, installing this in an individual's actual life and scenario. But putting myself out there is a way of attracting people who a lot of the things that I do resonates with. But the first thing, like, let's say, and it's happened before where I have people contacting me after being exposed to one of my videos or something, and they'll say, hey, I'm interested in doing coaching with you. It's like, all right, let's send you an application, and you got to fill that out and send it back to me. And then let's set up, a call and see if this is going to work for you. And I got to fill out an application. Yeah, you got to fill out an application. Oh, I just figured, just tell me how much it is. Well, I don't even know if I want to work with you. Why would I give you a price if I don't want to work with you? Yeah, but I just want to know what it is. Like, that doesn't matter to me whether you want to know what it is or is it. Like, I have a process, and if you don't want to, participate in that process, then good luck. Like, you continue watching the free videos, like, no problem with that. But in order to get past here, this is the cost, right? And the cost of filling out an application is it takes time. It takes, some effort. It takes some level of compliance to a process other than your own. And these are the things that we start putting in the way of people. And I'm somebody that could absolutely speak from experience. Just because you help people out doesn't mean that their version of being giving you a return on that investment, it doesn't mean that their version of that matches yours. And I've learned how to be a little bit more articulate, in what it is my expected returns are when I invest in people. But I also understand that there are times where I'm going to invest and people just prove themselves to be bad investments, and I need to adjust accordingly. But I can never tell myself it wasn't an investment to begin with that could have gone either way, right? Tom continues, I used to take more individual personal risk when I was single, or I used to take more individual personal risk when I was single without a wife and kids. But I found that after I had a wife and kids, I was now required to take risk, although different types of risks. Absolutely. I make the joke, and it is a joke that, my children have saved countless lives, right? Because I'd be lying if I said, the fact that I had a family relying on me did not enter my second step strategies on more than one occasion. And all these years removed from those situations, it's like they absolutely were the right decisions I made. But, a lot of people that, continue to act like they have nothing to lose, to talk about a dysfunctional level of risk, seeking, risk addiction versus risk aversion, I guess. A lot of people act like they have nothing to lose because they don't, right? And because they don't have the ability to sort of manage, their relationship with risk effectively, they wind up risking everything every time. And all it takes is, you lose one and you're done, starting all over again. So there is a line of function on that side of the spectrum as well. If you guys have ever seen, me talk about the lines of function, and I have many different applications of what this line of function, or this functional zone, is what I call the diagram. There's usually, avoiding the extremes in any one instance and staying within the realm of a certain level of activity keeps one functional. And I've talked about it for feedback. I've talked about it for preparation. What is When is too much preparation? When it makes you dysfunctional, then we call it paranoia. Like there's this point where there are lines on both ends before we enter into the extremes. And I think, there are some people who are too risky. Tuan Tom and I, like when we were younger men, we did riskier things, as just a way of just being us and exploring the world. Like we were going to be who we were going to be, and there weren't a lot of things that we were necessarily intimidated to expose ourselves to. But as you start, becoming more and more worth a shit as a man, there is more to lose. There are more people who rely on your productivity. And the return on the investment of the alliances with those people far outweighs, any return that we would get as an individual, which is why, we have the drive to pursue those investments to begin with. Right. I look at, I have friends of mine who are much more financially successful than I am. One such friend is worth, a bunch of millions of dollars, but he doesn't have a wife and children. Right. And he has a really nice car or a nice apartment, does a lot of traveling, he does a lot of things. And for the life of me, there's no way I would trade my life with his. And I think, and he's mentioned it in not so many words, he would be more than willing to trade his for mine. That the chance of having a wife and a bunch of children who are awesome, and the type of life that strong family men, traditional minded men wind up having. It's like there's no car that replaces that. There's no vacation that replaces that. It's a different way to live one's life. Tom writes, but we both continue to take risk, but it was a different type of risk, and the requirement to take this new type of risk is people are depending on me. Absolutely right. And that goes with what I was just describing as well. And it's, there is it was actually Tuan Tom that I remember a couple of years ago, Tuan, at a pressure con. You were giving a talk to the attendees there, and you said that when something goes wrong with somebody in your tribe, you want to be the person that they think of. And the more capable you are, the more you tend to be that person that people look to when they need help. And just think about what if every man in the tribe had that same approach, how capable that tribe would be. And Tuan Tom made the the joke that the people who often criticize a man developing those skills that makes him more valuable, nobody calls them anyway. So of course they don't understand. It's like nobody calls you. That was the joke, and it was absolutely true and fucking hilarious. But you got a lot of people who they can't connect with a lot of these messages, because it's like, how do I, if you have somebody like a phenomenon that we see today in today's society is this 20-something-year-old living in his parents' house, working at fucking Rite Aid and playing video games all night. How do you leverage any shame against somebody who is not living honorably to begin with? The person, and it's funny too, because that person is probably wasting more of his life than somebody who is risk addicted. However, one of the things he will need and rely on, whether he understands it or not, is a dysfunctional level of safety. You tell him, you should get your own place, and he'll get anxiety thinking about having to pay his own bills. You should get a new job. He'll get anxiety thinking about, the routine that he has being changed and him having to adjust to it. You tell him to aspire to these different things and to develop these different aspects of who he is as a young man, and it's anxiety building in him because it's such a far cry from what he is used to, this dysfunctionally safe environment. All right. So it is one of the things about, having people that rely on you, it's like, yeah, you will do more for them than you will do for yourself, because that's the way we're programmed. And it's something that I'm grateful, and men are grateful for, Derek, that's right. Derek brings up climbers and sitters. In one of my talks, I don't know, a couple of months ago, weeks ago, it's all a blur, but I was talking about, I think the context of climbers and sitters, when I was talking about AI and how AI, very similar to the cell phone, like you look at when the cell phone was introduced to society, it was supposed to be like this just completely life-changing tool for individuals, where our level of productivity and therefore society's productivity, like, when are we having the flying cars, and when are we having, like, had to be around the corner, because we had these little devices that, we could ask it for anything. We could call people on the other side of the planet. Like, this was Star Trek level shit. And the way I explained it then, I just explained this a few hours ago in my mastermind group. A lot of overlap, I think. If you had, an individual who had 10 units of, let's say, productivity, right? And let's say this individual, every day, he had 10 units of productivity. That's what he did day to day. The effort, the outcome, 10 units of productivity. Here comes the cell phone. And now it's AI, right? But at one point it was a cell phone. That's the one I used originally with this analogy or this metaphor. Now, let's say this cell phone represents 3 units of productivity. The climbers and sitters, right? The two types of mindsets in this type of situation. The climbers, right? The people who are used to climbing ladders and becoming more powerful, they say, well, I'm at a 10. This is 3. That's awesome. I'm going to be at 13 when I get this. And they were. Same way AI is being used. But I'm at a 10. This is 3. I'm at 13. Whereas the sitters, to draw the opposite, the contrast, the sitters said, I'm at a 10. This is 3. That's awesome. I could still get 10, but now I only have to do 7 because that'll give me 3. And that is a fundamental difference in the dichotomy that I labeled the climbers and sitters in reference to the ladder, But when we look at people and the things that are around them, it's like, how much convenience are you exposed to? Well, safety will breed more and more convenience because you will be mitigating risk. But how do you make the world safer? You make it smaller. How do you avoid a lot of risk? I used the example of this earlier in this talk when I talked about the guy from that YouTube channel taking his son out in minus 50-degree weather for some winter camping. It's like, how do you avoid him not freezing to death in minus 50-degree weather? You don't take him camping in that weather. But what are we giving up by avoiding it entirely? Our world gets smaller. So if we look at all the things where we have an inherent level of risk, how do we completely control not exposing ourselves to the consequences those things represent? We avoid them altogether. Our world gets smaller. It's hard to grow while also remaining dysfunctionally safe. We want to make good decisions over bad decisions, but I've always offered that the context of good and bad is in reference to, is it on mission or is it against your mission? If it's on mission, it's good. Some of the things that are on mission are going to have different levels of risk, some more than others. But if we're just saying we have to choose the option with the least amount of risk, well, we are co-opting, we are transcending any commitment we have to mission. Now the commitment becomes being safe. And those aren't always the same missions. Two on Tom. Right, this is a powerful talk. All men should study and incorporate these meditations. My sons will listen to this. Awesome. And tell them I said what's up when you do tell them to watch this. I haven't seen them in a bit. People in my life, Two on Tom is certainly one of them. You guys are familiar with Two on Tom. I've had him on so many times in my past podcasts and stuff. Like, who are you surrounding yourself with to have these talks? Who is holding you to task? I've known Two on Tom a decade. And in those 10 years, I will tell you right now completely and admitting it, he has reminded me of me fucking up in certain ways that I never would have been able to see looking at the mirror. And that is the value of having people who care about you, people who are capable on top of that, who care about you. You know, to play it safe, you know, I think I made a case for, you know, safety being at some point cowardly, you know, not in its entirety, but there's a certain point where you are willing, for the sake of safety, to avoid doing your job as you expressed your job to be, unless you've cited to everybody that's in your life that my job is to be safe, no, above all. You tell them that, then, hey, you're going to do what you're going to do. And, you know, you already said that that's what you were about. But a lot of people claim to be something else. They claim to be somebody who represents some other value, or somebody who's on track to pursue some other mission. And I would ask then where does safety fit in there? Because we have to understand, if safety isn't our complete goal, right? As I said, it shouldn't be. But if we say that it isn't, and we're pursuing this mission, then we have to accept that sometimes we're going to have to take on more risk than others. All right, guys, I'm going to call it there. I'm losing my voice. I've been talking since 8 o'clock this morning. It's about 5 hours. Give my voice a break. I got plenty of energy, but my voice is about to leave. I'm here every Wednesday. You guys know that, 12 o'clock for the Warrior Stream. I appreciate you guys hanging out with me. MasterChim.com has been completely upgraded. If you are not on my email list, I will pay you to be on my email list. And the payment will be in the form of a free $47 program, usually $47 program, called Master the 24-Hour Cycle. If you want that program for free, like, you could literally go on my site and buy it if you want, or you could get it for free just by giving me your email to put on my email newsletter, which is also free. I don't sell emails. I don't share emails. I'd be lying if I said, you know, I even know how to do that. But, you know, the email is just for me to contact you with the emails, and I have a good time doing it. I appreciate you all. I'll see you guys next week. Thank you for coming. And as always, brothers and sisters, pressure to power.